podcast dedicated to empower students and explore learning beyond textbooks. In today's academic world, a silent crisis is unfolding, one that's affecting millions of Indian youth. According to an article by the Economic Times, 1 in 7 Indian youth aged 15 to 24 faces depression and 41% of them never seek help, contributing to about a 25% rise in suicide cases in states like Uttar Pradesh. This challenge is as alarming on the global sphere as well, where UNICEF reports about 166 million youth aged 15 to 24 facing depression. This includes 89 million boys and 77 million young girls. This is not just a passing phase, it's a pandemic of pressure. In a world where grades often decide one's worth, we must pause and ask, what's the real cost of chasing this perfection? Today, we dive into a journey in the minds of students, where stress, anxiety, and expectation are silently competing with ambition and dreams. And to accompany us on this journey, we are truly honored to have our principal, Ms. Ritu Seth, with us, who has about 30 years of experience in the field of education. She has guided countless students and teachers alike, not just shaping academic journeys, but lives. Today, she will share her insights, wisdoms, and guidance on how we can place mental health at the top or the heart of the education system. This is Mind Over Marks, a conversation that puts mental health before marks and well-being before report cards. Nearly 91% of our students are reporting stress, in fact regular stress, and 60% of this stress is chronic pressure. What do you believe is the deeper cause behind this overwhelming mental load in the students?
Good question, Anaya. Well, I think academic stress is caused by the demands of academic environment, and there are various factors behind it. So first and primarily, of course, the school. So your exams, your grades, your peer pressure, your class test. So they also play a very vital role for this particular stress on students. Secondly, I would say family pressure. I mean, high expectations of parents, and there are a lot of comparison with siblings. First and primary, of course, the school environment. Of course, that is your class tests, your exams, grades, rankings, and as well as peer pressure in the classroom. Secondly, is about high expectations from the parents. So they expect a lot from their own wards. That is also causing a lot of stress on students these days. Third is social media. So that social media pressure, when you are too addicted to the social media, so that leads to anxiety and poor sleep issues. So that is also causing a lot of stress these days. And sometimes I have seen students imposing their self-worth by the grades and the ranks which they acquire in the classroom. I think you would agree, because they also measure their self-worth by the marks and the grades which they get in the classroom. Right? That happens in the class?
Yes,
I know that. So I often remind students also that their self-worth is not entirely based on the grades and ranks, right? The exams, marks and everything. And I do say this to all the stakeholders in a school, as students, teachers, and as well as parents, that this is just a one measure of learning. Your grades, which are reflected on the report card, is just one part of your learning. It's not the end of everything, right? And what I believe, the holistic growth of a student goes by that if a child has an inquisitive bent of mind, he has the curiosity to know better, he has the application skills, somebody who's very creative, somebody who can apply his learning into the real life challenges, right? And of course, very foremost thing is that if one can apply and think and reflect back on his or her mistakes, makes him apart from the other students. So if a child has all these kind of qualities, and if we value these skills in a student, so that I think the student will feel less likely that he or she is being judged, and more likely that he is like really genuinely growing and become a very self-confident individual.
Studies also show that over 40% of students hesitate to seek help for their mental health challenges. Why do you think the stigma around talking about emotions and stress silently competing with ambition still exists? And how can parents and schools work together to change that?
I encounter this stigma around the mental stress and strain very frequently in the school. What I think, our society also believes that vulnerability is a sign of a weak person, and students they internalize that idea. They think while talking about this to the school counselor or to teachers is a kind of a sign of a weak child, right? So that's why they don't discuss it. They don't communicate to us. They don't communicate it to their parents. And they think that if by doing so, they would really like to be kind of a fragile child. So that's why it doesn't happen it over there. But with the school perspective, I think if we give that kind of environment to the students behind it, right? So that there can be counseling programs, there can be the teachers training of on mental health and wellness of students. They can also guide students to come and open up and to communicate. There can be circle time activities wherein students feel kind of that confident enough to reach to a teacher, and a peer support system. So the schools can do that. Besides the school, this thing, it becomes the parents also duty. They should also, kind of a good listener. They should also not be judgmental. They should also not compare their ward with the other sibling. Okay, and because everybody has their own personality traits, so there might be something kind of problem to a senior child as compared to the junior brother, right? So we should not be comparing. This is my request to the parents. All the school and the parents they work together for this kind of stigma. I think the children will feel, the students will feel less likely that they are being judged and more likely that they are genuinely growing. And of course, they will grow as a very self-confident individual. That's what I feel.
Thank you, ma'am.
Further, we'd love to know about your journey. Could you please share a personal moment where you faced immense pressure or self-doubt and how you overcame it?
All right. Okay, so Anmol, I will tell you that my journey as an educator, as an academician, has been very, very satisfying. Though it wasn't that a bed of roses for me, and there are, of course, challenges, obstacles. There were the days which were very, very difficult at times. But if a person has that kind of a thing, if somebody is resilient, it has been a very, very satisfying journey. Though not, of course, a kind of a bed of roses. It has been a mixed bag of emotions, obstacles, challenges, kind of inspiration, which I used to get from my seniors, from my role models in this particular field, then transformations, connections, and then the personal growth. But as an educator, you have to also work on yourself, that how much you want to take children along with you. So it has been a kind of a satisfying, I would not say, because life is another name of challenges and you take it on, what I believe. And you should be ready to learn many things. So every day in this past 30 years being in this particular industry, I think there are many things which I have to learn. So that is the kind of thing which gives me, a satisfying way for me and gives me that zeal to go ahead and to take every day as it comes to me. That is my strategy. Secondly, you have just asked me kind of self-doubt or immense pressure. So I would like to share there were the days as an educator. So I used to teach science to my students. So that there was a one student who never liked my subject. So by just mere taking or changing the strategy, or just giving him one-on-one attention, also made a lot of difference. And when that particular child also did well, that was also very, very satisfying, satisfying me and as well as for the students also, because he started liking my subject. And nothing can give you that kind of lasting satisfaction as an educator if you inculcate that interest in your particular subject which I had. Secondly, was like, this is a personal thing, and I was waiting in one of my previous school for my daughter to come out, who was attending some, kind of extra classes in her school. So there was a girl like you, a beautiful girl, very tall. I couldn't recognize her, and she said, "Hello, ma'am, how are you?" I still don't remember. I'm really sorry. Sometimes we educators forget the names of our students too, which is very, very normal because you have taught so many batches for so many years. So I said, maybe she might be my daughter's, kind of some maybe classmate's sister. She said, "No, ma'am, you used to teach me in my grade 8. I said, "Okay. So which college you are studying in?" I just asked her. And she said, "Ma'am, I have finished my college and next week is my joining as a commercial pilot in one of the international this thing." And I felt so good that she could remember me. But that because she had grown, so I couldn't recognize her. But that kind of satisfaction as an educator, which gives you long-lasting impression as an educator, I believe in. Self-doubt, I would say, I've never self-doubt on myself because I feel that there are the days when we have to learn from each other. I also still learn from my students, from my fellow teammates, right? So everything, if you have that zeal to learn, there would not be any self-doubt. That is
They equate their self-worth entirely with their marks and ranks. What essential mindset shift do you think young people need in order to value themselves beyond just academic performance?
Sanvi, as I stated earlier, that the exams and the grades and rankings are just one part of learning. It is not your exactly the worth of showing students on the report card. This is just one part, one journey, right? One part of your journey, learning journey. Ma'am, dobara bolo. These exams and grades are just one part of a learning, and the student should realize it that who they are basically. If a student is persistent, if a student knows how to put in efforts and who can reflect back on his mistakes and ready to learn, that zeal if the student has, I think that shows the self-worth of a student, not only by mere exams or grades or rankings on a progress report. Yes. That these kind of qualities, if somebody is inculcating in himself or herself, then that child is go very far. And the school should also, kind of push or encourage the students to have these qualities. So we can have we can really celebrate their success, not necessarily in terms of on the progress report or their rankings or the grades, but if somebody is really good in dance, really good in music, maybe somebody has a good orator skills. So that can be, celebration about that particular child, and he or she can be some kind of certificate, something to encourage her whatever the potential that child has. That can be, shown into the world, right? So they feel confident. They become more confident individual when they get recognition from the school. Now, but also parents also. Parents also see that they should, encourage the child. They should be good listener. They should not be judgmental for the child, and they should encourage their child whichever passion or the hobby the child wants to pursue. Otherwise, they have their set norms. Okay, you have to be this because you have to take these particular subjects because we want you to be a doctor or an engineer or whichever. So they should not impose their own kind of ideas to a student. Of course, having said that, I would say as a parent, of course, they have all the right to show it to you what is wrong, what is right, which is going to be good or beneficial. So that can also be discussed with their own words. So if we are giving that kind of a support system to students, as in school and as well as at home, so the students feel more, they just grow good open-mindedness. In school, both of them work together. So the students, kind of frame, or they have that kind of, they develop that kind of a mindset, which is a very, very progressive. And they start taking this educational journey, their academic journey, as a journey only, a learning journey, not as a race. They have this kind of growth mindset. So they know that there would not be any looking back as an educator, and this is not a race. Have that this kind of they develop this kind of mindset, and they see their academic journey as a learning journey, not as a race. So they become more individual, self-confident individuals. Individual, self-confident women. Well, Sanvi, as I stated earlier, that the students need to understand that these marks and grades are just one part of learning, and it shows that who they are, right? Very small part of who they are. But self-worth comes from putting in efforts, persistent, integrity, and the ability to learn learn from mistakes, whatever. All of us make mistakes. So if we are able to learn and reflect back on our mistakes, puts us apart from the other students. I often remind students that these kind of qualities define them far more than any score or grade or ranking in the classroom. And schools can also celebrate creativity, persistence. If somebody is collaborating, or somebody has good open communication skills, and somebody has the problem solving skills and can reflect back, and of course ethical thinking. So these are, along with the academic achievement, if we are celebrating and inculcating these kind of skills in a child, is going to make him or her a different child altogether. Parents can also reinforce it at home, They should also be appreciating the small efforts done by a child, or maybe just, kind of arranging the bag, or arranging their beds or their rooms, like. So that can also be appreciated, that every child, a small or a bigger like you, everybody needs that appreciation. All of us need. I too need some appreciation, right? So recognizing, and if as a parent they recognize the progress in their child, and they encourage their hobbies or passions, not their self-imposed kind of standards which they want to impose on their child. So that also makes a lot of difference. So when students internalize this particular mindset of the parents as well as the educators of the school, they start seeing education as a learning journey rather than a race. That is the thing. So this shift of essential not just for mental well-being, but of course it cultivates them for being a lifelong learner. That's what we want. So who's confident in his or her abilities? That is that.
Seema, in a world obsessed with rankings, how can we identify the intangible signs of true intellectual growth?
See, intellectual growth is far more important and different, whatever is reflected as a test score on a report card, right? It is visible, these signs of somebody who has a true intellectual person. It is visible in his or her curiosity, problem solving skills, real life application skills, collaborating, if somebody is collaborating, and somebody is emotional intelligence, and of course the ethical thinking of a child. For example, a student might struggle on a written test but shine when applying concepts through a project very creatively, or maybe help some peer students, who they struggle in any kind of concept or something, or maybe come across as a leader when they are doing some group project or something like that. So these are the qualities which shows the intellectual growth of a child, right? So the Sanskrit, there is a saying in Sanskrit that says Vidya Vinayam Shodhate, means true knowledge shines with humility. It reminds us a genuine learning is reflected not only just in academic grades, but of course the character, the thoughtfulness, the willingness to grow together. So observing and celebrating these signs in an individual student, makes him or her to develop holistically, preparing them not just for exams, but of course for life. that your exams, your rankings, your grades doesn't matter to us. As a school, as a principal, what I feel your true qualities, if you inculcate, we value those skills because that is going to take you far in life. Not only just by your marks and grades on a progress report. And the parents should also realize it. So these days, like as Gagan asked me, that the stigma around it, and more so that our society also feel that girls can cry and boys cannot cry, doesn't go well. Everybody, all of us can show our emotions to everyone. Alright, so this should not be a gender biased thing, the stigma around it. All of us can cry and can share our viewpoints, right? So the more if you become that kind of a confident individual, we can actually overcome from many obstacles. And you also should not hesitate it to your teachers, even to your principal. You can approach me anytime for any kind of help. And of course your parents. Your parents are your best friends. That also you should keep it in mind. Alright? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That kind of stress which we were discussing, that why do we have this kind of stress, and especially the exam stress in your senior classes. For that, my suggestions to all of you is, if you are regular in your studies, you will never face that kind of stress. If you have made your own timetable, I'm not talking about the school timetable, don't go by that. Alright, I hope you must have made it at home, So you should be aware of that, okay, I'm going to, and just don't go by the larger picture. You know that you have written your aim on one wall or maybe in your cupboard or maybe on your table, that this is I want to reach, or these are maybe even the grades also or whatever. So but you have to be resilient, you have to be hardworking, you have to put in efforts, nobody else. So there is a saying, the God also has, there is a those who help themselves. So that also you have to realize it, right? And to reach to that larger goal, you have to start planning for the short-term goals. If you are planning for that, okay, so this short-term goal is being achieved by me. So tick. And then next. So this is how you are going to really do good. You are going to do good in life. This is how I have always taken in my life of past 30 years as an educator. I have also kept giving myself my own challenges. Then that is actually life. The day you become like kind of stagnant, then we are nowhere. So it has to move on. We all have to move on. Wherever we are, at this age also, I cannot say that I've learned everything. I'm still learning. I still have the zeal to learn. I don't know where I'm going to reach. And this is not the place of being principal of a school is going to be now the end of everything. No. There are too many milestones which I still have to achieve. Alright. So same thing, you should also inculcate that kind of a habit in you. Alright, and that's your student life, of course you have to do that.
Today's discussion, one thing becomes clear. Education is not just about marks or report cards, but it's about nurturing minds, building confidence, and helping young people discover their talents and opportunities. We must remember that behind every report card is a story of effort, resilience, and strength. We must cherish these efforts, resilience, and strength to ensure that a student shifts his focus from performance to progress, from competition to compassion, and from grades to growth. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights with us today, and thank you, all our listeners, for joining us in this important conversation. Let us continue to create an environment where students feel supported, understood, and valued, not for what just they achieve, but for who they are. This was Mind Over Marks. Until next time, take care of your mind and marks will follow.